Russia is trying to form an axis of evil consisting of Iran and North Korea to threaten the whole world. Currently, our borders with the Republic of Belarus and the Russian Federation, both on land and at sea, remain undefined. In recent years, there remains a question of global war, or rather a war with the global intervention of several countries.
Hello and welcome to Ukraine in Flames, a special project by Ukraine Media Center and NGO Euro-Atlantic Course, and I'm your host, Myroslava Yaremkiv. Currently, there are 183 regional and local conflicts in the world. This is the highest rate in the last 3 decades, and these conflicts will not end quickly. Conflicts have become more complex, more deadly, and more difficult to resolve. Fears about the possibility of nuclear war have resurfaced. New potential areas of conflict and means of warfare create new ways in which humanity can destroy itself. In today's episode, we're going to talk about War Index 2023, which examines actively manifesting conflicts worldwide through a series of indicators identifying the conflict's essence, progression, and significance for regional and global security. If you want to learn more about this subject, please continue watching this video and subscribe to our channel so that you don't miss our videos in the future. In 2023, the Russian-Ukrainian war emerged as the most significant global event, becoming one of the most extensive conflicts since the Korean War in terms of technical intensity, and the largest European conflict since 1945. The Russian-Ukrainian war is part of a global confrontation, the quiet Third World War unfolding since 2011 in various theaters of military action. More on the global consequences of the Russian-Ukrainian war, please welcome Director of the Analytical Center Ukrainian Studies of Strategic Research and Junior Sergeant of the 5th Separate Assault Brigade, Yuriy Syrotiuk.
Russia is trying to form an axis of evil consisting of Iran and North Korea to threaten the whole world. We see that there is an attempt. It is no longer just a hot war in Ukraine. We must remember that all the wars that were fought in Ukraine turned into world wars, because Ukraine is located in a very important geopolitical point on the border of the vast steppe and Europe. Accordingly, Ukraine plays a significant role in the food security system of countries. That's why we warned at the beginning of this project that the war in Ukraine could have global consequences. We see that it has such consequences now. Now, Russia and its partners are trying to do everything to destabilize the global security system and interrupt trade flows, probably to provoke another energy crisis. We saw, for example, how Iran first acted in the Middle East through its proxies. Now, Iran is starting to resort directly to missile strikes. That's why we started this project. I'll tell you briefly. In parallel, the Ukrainian Studies of Strategic Research, a non-governmental think tank, makes a global forecast. Every year, we try to predict what will happen in the world and in Ukraine in terms of politics, security, and economy. This year, we've published both the War Index and the Global Forecast in English. We're happy to invite you to download it for free on ussd.org.ua, PDF version or text version. You are also welcome to use it. We write here what we predict wrongly or what we did not predict last year so that you can see. You can not only see the dynamics of all military conflicts in the world, but also see the perspectives of where we think the situation is going. Now regarding Ukraine, force remains the main argument for solving international politics, not diplomacy, not other means, but force. And this will increase, and we notice it. Regarding the war in Ukraine in 2023, you remember that at the end of 2022, Ukraine made considerable progress in the Russian-Ukrainian war. We managed to push the enemy beyond the right bank of the Kherson region, and it was a big success for the Ukrainian army. There was also the brilliant Kharkiv operation when we overcame the Izium enclave. You know that Russia gathered a huge army to cut off the Ukrainian group in Donbass from the rest of Ukraine. On the one hand, it planned to advance up the left bank from the Black Sea, from the Sea of Azov, and, on the other hand, to go down from the Kharkiv region, from Izum, and to cut off our Donbass group. They failed to do it. And as a result of our Kharkiv-Izum operation, a large part of Ukraine's territory was liberated. And there was a great hope of from society, that in 2023 Ukraine would continue that brilliant and asymmetrical counteraction against the world's second largest military power. Unfortunately, 2023 did not quite meet the expectations of the majority of society, although military analysts understood that there could be no miracle. Imagine early in 2023, Russia carried out active offensive operations, albeit of a limited nature, around Bakhmut. Russia destroyed, wiped off the map Bakhmut by early May. Then Ukraine held strategic initiative in the war with Russia all of last year, until December, when Russia switched back to attack on all fronts. Today, the Ukrainian army is in active defense. Part of the society is so pessimistic that we've given the initiative to the Russians. I'd like to point out, though, that probably no military analyst could have predicted that there could have been an army in the world that would attack in the open steppe against an army that is stronger, against an army with more people, more weapons, which dominates the air and which has mined the whole territory. Probably only Ukrainians could show such heroism during last year's summer's offensive campaign and attack, despite the fact that we had less of everything.
The appearance of a significant number of interpretations of the map of Ukraine by Russia and a number of well-known global brands causes a split in the public perception of Ukraine by Europeans, and this must be fought at the state level. Let's explore the importance of demarcation using the example of the Nagorno-Karabakh military operation with political analyst and PhD in social and behavioral sciences Yuriy Rudyk.
Why is demarcation crucial? Currently, our borders with the Republic of Belarus and the Russian Federation, both on land and at sea, remain undefined. In the past, there were challenges with the Romanian sea border, among others. Looking forward, I personally oppose the idea of reverting to the 1991 borders. While this may seem territorially correct, it poses issues regarding actual border demarcation. Returning to the 1991 borders would mean inheriting over 80% of an uncontrolled border not properly allocated among the former Soviet Union republics. Essentially, this would create a significant problem for Ukraine, as we had demarcated borders with the external allies of the former Soviet Union. I won't recount how the fighting was conducted during the September operation on September 19th to 2023. It is important to emphasize here that, in fact, Azerbaijan has restored its territorial integrity and has already been congratulated by more than one statesman and more than one state. Another issue is important. The territorial integrity is indeed presented as restored, but the issues of enclaves occupied by Armenia remains. They haven't been recognized as occupiers in any international document, neither in the UN Security Council's decision, nor in the decisions of the Minsk Group of the OSCE, etc. But the fact remains that, for example, the enclaves of Yardulu, Yakharis, Askepara, Bahudali, Sofulu, and Keke, which are scattered in different territories, including Gazakh district of Azerbaijan Republic and part of the Nakhichevan Autonomous Republic, which is actually the enclave of Chechnya, are still under the control of the Armenian forces. That's why this problem is important. If you'll recall the Tripartite Declaration, which was actually the result of the Second Karabakh War, or the National War of Azerbaijan, etc., the issues of these enclaves was mentioned in the first version. Actually, not all of them, but only those located in the Gazakh district. These are Baradula and Sofula. It was stated that they were returned to Azerbaijan. Then, sometime later, that point disappeared, and accordingly, the issue seemed to get bogged down. However, in fact, it will be important for the Republic of Azerbaijan to complete the demarcation and delimitation of the borders, because there is also a problem with the construction of roads, etc., through mountain terrains. Obviously, there are questions about the same tripartite statement regarding the maintenance of the land border with the Nakhichevan Autonomous Republic, as well as the issue of restoring control over the enclaves and how this will happen. It is going to be another problem in relation between Baku and Yerevan. Why? Because it was always a map of tension, despite the fact, if I may say so, Azerbaijan seems to have already regained control over the continental territories, over its own territories.
On October 25, 2022, Sudan experienced a state coup, resulting in the removal of civilian representatives from power, consolidating all political functions in the hands of the military wing. Paramilitary group Rapid Support Forces, led by the second most powerful figure in the country, General Mohammed Hamdan Daglo, known as Hemedti, has certain military and economic ties with the Wagner Group. Hemedti was in Russia before the invasion of Ukraine and generally supports the idea of building a Russian base in Sudan, which is a strategic goal for Russia. More on that, please welcome Head of Research Programs of the Analytical Center Ukrainian Studies of Strategic Research, Yuriy Oliynyk.
In recent years, there remains a question of global war, or rather a war with the global intervention of several countries. This is the problem of the Nile reservoir and the dam on the Nile built by Ethiopia, as well as the problems of refugees who go from Ethiopia to Sudan. For example, Sudan supports them. For a long time, there was a war in Tigray, a separatist region in Ethiopia. Strictly speaking, there was a risk of having a conflict spreading to the entire space of the East Africa. Russia actively intervened there, being a mediator of supporting separate forces. But fortunately, in Ethiopia, the level of intensity has dropped significantly over the past year. There is mostly a truce, but in recent months we have seen a threatening movement of conflict expansion. There are threats to move the war more actively to Somalia. Although Somalia is essentially a failed state where various groups are waging a terrorist and guerrilla war amongst themselves. In fact, there is now a threat of recognition of separatism in some of those regions, since Ethiopia recognized the independence and sovereignty of Somalia. This is an autonomous territory that claims independence. Somalia, as well as a number of other states, condemned it. It can also become such a center of instability in the coming year. However, the most important, not only in the region but in all of Africa, was the last year's conflict in Sudan, where the struggle continues between the army and the so-called Janjaweed militia, both of which have been in the alliance for a long time, both of which came to power in the coup at the end of 2021 and which were supported by Russia, but now they quarrel among themselves. We saw clear signs that the soldiers from Wagner at first, and then other pro-Russian mercenaries, mostly helped this Janjaweed group. Currently, in fact, a third of the territory is controlled by some groups and a third by other groups. Although the intensity has decreased to some extent, there was active fighting in the cities during the summer. Now the intensity is somewhat lower, but the territory occupied by the opposing sides is spreading. And in principle, we see positive traces of the fact that the army government, which was more pro-Russian, is drifting more and more, trying to look for mediators in Egypt, Turkey, and actually in the countries of the West. There's hope that the country will be more actively involved in preventing the expansion of Russian influence there, because Sudan remains one of the main intermediary bases for the transit of Russian weapons, Russian mercenaries, and the export of resources to other African countries, along with Libya and Syria.
You've been been watching a special project by Ukraine Media Center and Euro-Atlantic course dedicated to the Russian-Ukrainian war, Ukraine in Flames. In the description under this video, you can find information on how you can help Ukraine fight Russian aggression. If you find our work useful, please like and share this video. Slava Ukraini!